At 6:47 in the morning on August 1, 1943, the desert air over Benghazi airfield in Libya vibrated with the sound of engines warming up. Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker climbed into the cockpit of his B-24 Liberator, Hell's Wench, knowing exactly what this day was expected to cost. He was 36 years old, commander of the 93rd Bomb Group, with nearly a year of combat already behind him. Beside him settled Major John Jerstad, just 25, calm and focused. Jerstad had finished his required 25 missions weeks earlier. He should have been packing his bags for home in Oregon. Instead, he had volunteered to fly one more mission, this time as Baker's co-pilot, because Baker needed experience beside him, and Jerstad knew the plan better than almost anyone alive. Around them, 178 heavy bombers prepared to lift off for what intelligence officers had already labeled the longest and lowest bombing raid in history. The target lay far to the north, the Ploiești oil refineries of Romania, the industrial heart that supplied nearly a third of Nazi Germany's fuel. Tanks, aircraft, submarines, all of them drank from Ploiești. Destroy it, and the war itself might slow. Fail, and hundreds of airmen would die for nothing. Command estimates were blunt. Casualties could reach 50%. Everyone on the field understood what that meant. Operation Tidal Wave demanded a round trip of nearly 2,400 miles, flown mostly at altitudes so low that treetops would blur beneath the wings. Previous high-altitude raids had failed. The only remaining option was to fly straight through the defenses at rooftop height, drop delayed fuse bombs, and hope the explosions didn't catch the bombers themselves. Training alone had already claimed 47 B-24s. Pilots had misjudged altitude over water, slammed into hillsides, collided in tight formations. Baker knew the numbers. Jerstad knew them too. They climbed into Hell's Wench anyway. 10 men filled the aircraft that morning. Navigator Harold Sweetman, bombardier John McCormick, engineer James Merritt, radio operator Cecil Fite, and 4 gunners took their stations. No speeches were needed. Everyone understood the odds. 1 out of every 2 aircraft might not return. But Ploiești refined 12 million barrels of petroleum a year. Every day it kept running, German tanks pushed deeper into Russia and U-boats stalked Allied convoys. The mission was worth the cost. That belief was the only thing holding the plan together. Baker had briefed his men again and again. Timing was everything. 5 bomb groups had to arrive over their targets at exactly 9:30 a.m. Romanian time. Hit together, and the defenses would be overwhelmed. Arrive late, arrive early, or stray from the flight plan, and the Germans would concentrate every gun on whoever came alone. The 93rd Bomb Group was assigned the Astra Romana and Unirea refineries. Baker's aircraft would lead. He intended to show his men the way through. At 7 o'clock, engines roared across Benghazi. One by one, the bombers lifted into the sky, formed up over the Mediterranean, and turned north. At altitude, the formation stretched for miles before descending toward wave-top height over the Aegean Sea. The plan was to slip beneath German radar across Greece and Yugoslavia, then rise only slightly as they approached Romania. Baker settled into his seat. Jerstad scanned the instruments. Hell's Wench flew at the point, 17 aircraft tight behind her. 3 hours into the mission, the first crack appeared. AB-24, carrying the mission's lead navigator, lost power over the Mediterranean. It tried to land on the water at high speed, broke apart on impact, and vanished beneath the waves. Everyone aboard was lost. With that aircraft went the one man who knew the entire route by heart. There was no backup. Baker watched the formation continue north and felt the weight of it settle in his chest. Something was already going wrong. They crossed the Greek coast and dropped to 500 feet. The bombers flew so low pilots could see individual trees and startled livestock scattering beneath them. Terrain masking worked, but it burned fuel faster and left no room for error. A wrong turn here would send dozens of aircraft into mountainsides. Baker checked his gauges. Engines steady. Fuel acceptable. To his left and right, the other bomb groups, 5 in total, held formation. One target lay ahead. At 9:05 a.m., the formation reached the initial point, the moment where everything depended on correct navigation. The lead group began its turn. Baker recognized the mistake instantly. They were turning toward Bucharest. Wrong valley. Wrong city. The lead group was pulling more than 100 bombers away from Ploiești and straight toward failure. Baker grabbed the radio and broke silence, calling again and again. Static answered him. German jamming had already begun. Baker looked at Jerstad. The choice was brutally simple. Follow the lead group and waste the mission, or break away and take the 93rd alone into the most heavily defended target in Europe. Command had predicted 50% losses with 5 groups attacking together. What would happen if only one went in? Baker decided in 5 seconds. He banked hard left toward Ploiești. Behind him, 17 aircraft followed without hesitation. German radar operators saw the split immediately. Orders went out across the city. A small group was coming in low. Every gun was to focus on them. Baker flew straight toward the smokestacks of Astra Romana, 11 miles ahead. Black shapes rose into the sky, barrage balloons, hundreds of them, steel cables hanging beneath like a deadly forest. At 470 feet, Hell's Wench entered the defense zone. The city exploded with fire. Anti-aircraft guns of every caliber opened at once. Tracers filled the air. Black bursts of flak surrounded the formation. Baker weaved between cables, jerking the controls left and right as Jerstad called out hazards. An explosion beneath the aircraft lifted it violently, shrapnel ripping through fuel tanks and hydraulic lines. Warning lights flashed. The aircraft was wounded, but still flying. Then a steel cable scraped along the right wing, tearing aluminum. Seconds later, an 88mm shell punched into the wing root. Fuel ignited instantly. Flames erupted and raced outward. Hell's Wench was on fire, less than a minute from the target. Below lay open fields, perfect for an emergency landing. 17 bombers followed him. If he broke off, they would too. Jerstad checked the bomb controls, armed the delayed fuses. The fire spread, heat flooding the cockpit, smoke choking the air. The bomb bay doors were already open. 30 seconds. McCormick lay in the nose, steady, calm, crosshairs locked on the refinery structures ahead. German gunners concentrated everything on the burning lead aircraft. Shrapnel shredded control surfaces. Baker fought to keep the wings level. Flames licked at the cockpit windows. His hands blistered on the controls. At the precise moment, McCormick released the bombs. 72,000 pounds of explosives fell in unison. Hell's Wench surged upward, then staggered. The delayed fuses detonated beneath them in violent waves. Towers collapsed. Fireballs rose hundreds of feet. The refinery was destroyed, but Hell's Wench was still inside the blast zone. The aircraft clawed upward through smoke, burning, barely controllable. One by one, the other bombers broke away. Some escaped. Others didn't. Aircraft were ripped apart by flak, sliced by cables, detonated from within. The 93rd was paying the price alone. Hell's Wench climbed to 800 feet, then higher, flames consuming the right wing. Engines failed one by one. Baker knew they would never reach friendly territory. Bailing out now would mean capture. Years in prison camps. Some might never come home. Baker pulled back on the yoke and kept climbing. Every extra foot meant a better chance to reach partisan territory. The intercom failed. Radio went dead. The crew stayed at their posts anyway. No one left. At 1,700 feet, the right wing began to fail. Metal screamed. Rivets popped. Then it tore away completely. Hell's Wench rolled inverted and began to spin. There was no escape. No time. Baker fought the controls until the end, hands locked on the yoke, doing his job. At 9:47 a.m., Hell's Wench struck the earth in a Romanian field. The explosion carved a crater and scattered wreckage for hundreds of yards. All 10 men died instantly. Operation Tidal Wave ended with catastrophic losses. 53 aircraft destroyed. 310 airmen killed. Yet the refineries burned for months. German fuel production collapsed. The war shifted. Months later, medals arrived. Addison, Baker, and John Jerstad were awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. The citations spoke of courage, leadership, and sacrifice. The other 8 men received telegrams and folded flags. They had flown into hell together and finished the mission. Because of them, the world changed. And because their story is remembered, they are not gone.